Hi guys, it's me, Sapphire Opal 5 again. Thank you for coming by to watch this video. Today I want to talk about dream walking and also what I'm going to coin as the term dream sharing. I was asked to make this video through my divination by the deity Poseidon, who interestingly enough is actually Jared Padalecki's higher self. Now, I'm going to talk about the show Supernatural, as they briefly touched on this topic in season 3 in one episode, and also in some later seasons. But basically, dream walking is a so-called telepathic ability to enter someone else's dream, and in the supernatural world, you can also supposedly manipulate people's memories and such in it. I have not heard of people being able to do the memory manipulation through dream walking in real life. And in shamanism, they do talk about how dream walking is the ability to travel to other worlds and to gather more information and insights and such. And also the ability to enter someone else's dream to give them some guidance and spiritual messages and assistance and such. And I think in the show Supernatural, they also kind of touched on it when angels enter, like Dean Winchester's dream, for example, in season 4, episode 10, where he talks about having Anna's grace. Now, the reason why I was peeved about the way they portrayed Dreamwalkers is because, from what I do know, how dreamwalking really works differs from what I call dream sharing. And I know that all the online texts for dreamwalking in real life talks about both, where you can enter someone else's dreams to give them guidance and stuff, and to travel to other worlds and such. Now, it's also important to talk about what dreams really are. And based on what we believe about dreams consistently is that they are essentially successions of images, ideas, emotions, and sensations that occur in our minds during certain stages of sleep. And based on a quick Google search, humans spend about 2 hours dreaming per night, and each dream lasts around 5 to 20 minutes, although the dreamer might perceive the dream as being longer than this. Now, with dream walking, or what I'm going to call dream sharing, it involves lucid dreaming, which is being aware that you are dreaming as the dream is occurring. And I also think that it can involve also vivid dreaming, or rather that's what dream walking is. And I think lucid dreaming is more so about dream sharing. And I call the ability to enter someone else's dream and such dream sharing. Deities and Faye and other benevolent beings that are not mortal humans like us in these bodies all talk about dream time or sleep time being illusion time. Now, part of this is because some people do conduct business through dream walking, which I'm going to talk more in greater detail about my own personal experiences that does show that dream walking is actually a thing. So basically, dream sharing, like I said, it's basically, being able to enter someone else's dream. And the point of doing this is to help someone else when you can't really physically communicate with them for some reason. Like, you don't know them, you don't know they have their number, or they're in a place with bad reception if you know them, or just whatever. You can't reach them in this physical realm, so you do it through their dreams. And then dream walking, on the other hand, works basically when the astral body, everybody has one, enters their physical incarnation and takes them into the astral planes to conduct some kind of business. Now, with dream walking, the conscious mind enters a dream-like state while this whole thing is happening. So essentially you are dreaming either way, but the way each of them works is vastly different. In this next part of the video, I'm going to talk about my own personal experiences being an actual dream walker here in a moment. Okay, so I want to share my own personal experiences of being a dream walker in this part of the video. So, years ago, I made a post here on YouTube about a trip to the Pleiades I made, specifically to the star system Maia, M-A-I-A. And at the time, I just thought it was some very vivid dream and that was it. However, it turns out that what really happened is that I dreamwalked to the Pleiades, and I went there for some very important business relating to God's plan and how it relates to the divine plans for many people, and therefore also divine blueprints. So I mentioned in this video, or possibly even just comments, about how I came back and I felt very winded. And I noticed for a few days afterwards, I was really struggling to breathe right. And I felt like I felt hard and I felt winded and just like it's hard to explain, but basically I felt like really tight in my chest, and it didn't really make sense to me as to why I would feel that way. Like, I don't have any respiratory illnesses or history of respiratory problems whatsoever. So I ended up having some other weird so-called dreams for almost like a month straight, I want to say. I remember being in a cave a lot. And in this cave, I remember seeing like some cages and medical beds. And I also remember seeing really tall beings, like some that look like reptilians. And also, kind of like us mortal humans, but really tall. Giants. Now, I remember being on a bed at one point and being given some treatment, and they were talking about something is in my blood that human doctors really want to get their hands on. I don't know what it is. I didn't know what it was back then. I'm not going to really reveal what it is in this video. But anyways, so I remember these so-called dreams, and they happened a lot in this particular month after my trip to the Pleiades video that I made, after that particular so-called dream. And it turns out that the atmosphere around the star Maia that I went to is in the Norse cosmic realm, Asgard. And what's interesting is that in the Pleiades, there are 12 main stars. Even though they only really mentioned 11, but according to space.com, you can see up to 12 stars with the naked eye if the sky's real clear and the conditions are ideal for it, of course. And then I've also gone to Merope. Again, more oxygen deprivation type symptoms, but not nearly as bad. It took like a couple of days to recoup from that, and not like a whole month, so to speak. And that happened very recently for me. And I've gone there in the past also before, and I kind of remember speaking to someone with a red suit and explaining to them who I am an incarnation of. And I only heard Aliana Akrina, and it turns out that who the full name of who I happen to be an incarnation of is Hela Aliana Akrina, who is the Nordic goddess of death, and that's her full name. But no one really knows that. Anyway, so I remember introducing myself that way, and then they said, if that's who you really are, and they got confirmation of it, then they mentioned that if you're the feared Aliana Akrina, then you are allowed passage onto this planet. And I remember seeing that years ago. And then someone else here on YouTube, her name is Arcturian Star. I haven't seen her post anything in years, and I think she took this video down along with many others. She also mentioned and had this video talking about being in the Pleiades also, and what she saw was essentially a lot of bodies and tubes essentially that looked like, the adults looked like they were in their 30s and such, and even the children kind of did too, but just shorter. Apparently what she was seeing were immortal bodies that didn't have their incarnations in them yet, their souls, so to speak, their consciences. And the particular planet she went to, apparently they had to put eye drops in their eyes because the atmosphere is different there, and that's how this being explained it to her and some of the other people that were on this ship. So pretty much anywhere you go in Asgard as a Dreamwalker, you're either going to suffer from some kind of oxygen deprivation to some extent, or you may end up having some problems with your eyes afterwards. And it's interesting how physical symptoms can show up after a so-called dream, where you're just laying in bed and that's all you're doing while you're sleeping. Some other symptoms that show up when you're dreamwalking, like some people who wake up in a sweat, feel like they ran a marathon, even develop some respiratory problems from doing it too frequently or going to the wrong places anyways, like the astral planes of Earth, which, by the way, the air there really is toxic, just like the Upside Down in Stranger Things. And they will develop problems like asthma, COPD, or even small lung disease. And a lot of the people I do know who went to the astral planes, and some of them frankly didn't do some good things, all consistently ended up having some kind of respiratory illness, curiously enough. I've also been to the Faye realm plenty of times, and this is one place where there's quite a few people on Earth who have gone there, and of course their memories are erased, like memory charm business basically. And apparently the Fae realm is actually called Van Alfheim, and it turns out that the Norse cosmic realms Vanaheim and Alfheim are both one and the same planet around the star Arcturus. Now, this is going to sound really crazy, but I remember when I was a kid, I was in my basement drawing and coloring some things by myself. And then I remember hearing some really interesting, what I want to call celestial music, is really the best way I could put it. It almost sounded like some kind of flute. And I remember literally physically walking, like from one moment I was like kind of like sitting in the closet, and then the next I remember being in this place where I saw a rainbow in the sky. I saw a waterfall, and I saw like a lot of green fields, and I saw a lot of like buildings that kind of remind me of like when you played the first two Spiral the Dragon games, and also like some homes that were built into the actual mountains. And in a way, also kind of remind me of Rivendell in a way, in that sense. And I remember just walking around, and I remember seeing a lot of beings that were wearing like white robes, long hair tied back, boots, and things like that. And, you know, like kind of had like pointed ears, flawless, things like that. And just beautiful people. I remember seeing them for like, it was kind of raining and misting there that day. And also being near a waterfall, I suppose that would also make it a little bit more human and misting and such. And then I actually remember walking around in this place physically, and it blew my mind. Like I thought I was in my closet in the basement, and I wasn't just daydreaming. And the reason why I know this is because I came back into the basement. Like I was there for maybe a few minutes, and I came back upstairs, and my family was just giving me a weird look. Like I came upstairs because I think it was dinner time or something, and they were all just giving me this really weird look. Like I felt like I wasn't quite myself. Like maybe someone was like in my body at the time, and I had to assimilate coming back to Earth for some reason. And I just thought it was the weirdest thing ever. And I thought I was just having a really vivid daydream, but it turns out I was not. I actually dreamwalked wide awake and entered the fairy realm, entered a portal, and went to this planet and such. And I was just kind of like, whoa. I didn't know this at the time because I want to say I was like maybe like 10 years old or 11 or maybe even 9 years old or something like that. And I had no idea about what dream walking was or portals or fairy realm. I didn't know about any of this stuff, but all I knew it was that I went somewhere different after hearing some kind of flute playing and some other little music that came with it. And I just thought it was the weirdest thing ever. Apparently my family noticed something different when I came upstairs, and I actually noticed that my skin felt really humid, and like I had some moisture on my arms from coming back. So I definitely know I was physically there. So that to me is physical proof that I did go there when I was wide awake, which is very interesting. I remember in the show Supernatural with Kaya Naives, I don't think I'm saying her last name right, but maybe I am, by miracle chance, where they portrayed dreamwalking in Kaya's way, basically being able to travel through meditation to other worlds and such. But it's funny that she came back with actual wounds on her arms, which, you know, to me tells me that, you know, they didn't really understand how dream walking actually works. And it really is that her astral body went into her and went to the bad place. And now I'm going to bring back up Jotunheim, because in Norse cosmology, Jotunheim is the realm of the giants, and it does mention in the description of Jotunheim in Norse mythology texts about how Jotunheim is not a very hospitable place. It's not very warm, especially in the mountains. Very rocky, high up, cold, and treacherous, and things like that. And Jotunheim as a whole is very disorderly. It's anarchy there, and chaotic, and just very hostile. And it turns out that Jotunheim is a very unpleasant place to be. And what I was in the mountainous parts, visiting giants that were giving me medical treatment in the mountains, in one of their lairs, so to speak. And with the show Supernatural, they portrayed the bad place as having giants and talking about it being an anarchy, and there's a lot of fear amongst the shorter beings there and things like that. And it turns out that, and I don't think that the writers were really fully aware of this, or even if they knew at all, but they were portraying the chaotic forests of Jotunheim in the show. So I thought that was a very interesting tidbit of information. And as I've said before, I am the only Dreamwalker that has ever lived on Earth that has been granted access to Jotunheim. Jotunheim is a very dangerous place to go, but one place that I have not been authorized to go to, and my guides all admitted that they absolutely refuse to let me go there as a mortal human, is Svartalfheim, or Nidavellir, which is the home of the dwarves in Norse cosmology. Dwarves, it turns out, are evil beings, and this is one place where people are who are evil enough, but not evil enough to not go to a pleasant place, but not evil enough to be condemned to death, which is the way people die. Let's not get into that. And yes, the astral bodies do die, so you might want to get off that train of thought there. But with Nidavellir, or Svartalfheim, it's interesting because the dwarves actually hate women, and it makes me wonder why Snow White was ever liked by the 7 dwarves in the Snow White movie to begin with. So I thought that was interesting. Thank you for coming by to watch this video. I hope you found it insightful and interesting, or at least amusing one way or another. Again, I hope that you learned more about dreamwalking and also what I call dream sharing and how they actually work. And I hope that you do take into consideration what I have to say here about why the internet and everyone else has it wrong, because they don't really understand the mechanisms of how both of them work. And a lot of it is based on the assumption that dreams are only like us going to sleep, laying in bed, and basically like sometimes replaying like what we see in life, and combining it in some very interesting ways, and our subconscious trying to communicate with the conscious mind, things like that. And to me, that kind of dismisses like the spiritual aspect of things. But again, we all need some logical explanation to explain the crazy things in this lifetime. Again, thank you for watching this video, and I hope you have a good rest of the day. Bye. here in a moment.